My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 34 years old now, and I've worked private security for most of my adult life. What I'm about to tell you happened when I was 29, during a 6-month contract I took guarding an abandoned pharmaceutical research facility on the outskirts of Phoenix. I've never talked about this publicly before, mostly because every time I tried, people either laughed or told me I was overtired. But I know what I experienced out there, and I know it wasn't just in my head. The facility had been shut down after a lawsuit involving human testing. That's what the supervisor told us anyway. No details, no files, just that the company wanted the place monitored until it could be demolished. The building sat alone in the desert, surrounded by chain-link fence and sand that never seemed to shift. Night shift paid more, so I volunteered. That was my first mistake. The first few nights were uneventful. Just me, a flashlight, a radio, and the hum of the generators that powered the exterior lights. Inside, the hallways were long and narrow, with yellowed linoleum floors and doors labeled with faded numbers. Everything smelled like dust and antiseptic. The silence inside the building was so complete that I could hear my own breathing echoing back at me. Around my 5th night, I started noticing small things. Doors that I was certain I had locked would be slightly open during my next round. Not wide open, just enough to notice. At first, I blamed myself. Long shifts mess with your memory. But then I started finding footprints in the dust inside rooms that no one had entered for years. Bare footprints, human, no shoes. I reported it to my supervisor. He laughed and said it was probably kids sneaking in, though the fence was intact and the nearest town was over 20 miles away. Still, he told me to keep an eye out. The radio started acting strange around that time. Sometimes during my patrols, I'd hear breathing over the static, slow, deliberate breathing. When I asked if anyone else was on the channel, no one ever responded. Then the breathing would stop. One night, around 2:17 a.m., I heard a loud intercom announcement echo through the building. A calm male voice said, "Subject movement detected. Initiate lockdown procedure." The power flickered, and every door in the hallway slammed shut at once. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The intercom hadn't been connected in years. I knew that for a fact. I tried my radio, nothing but static. I forced one of the doors open and stepped inside what looked like an old observation room. There was a one-way mirror on the wall, cracked but intact. As my flashlight beam passed over it, I saw movement behind the glass, a shape, tall, thin, standing perfectly still, as if it had been waiting for me. I backed away, whispering to myself that it was just my reflection, just bad lighting. But then the shape leaned forward, and I realized it wasn't mirroring my movements, it was watching me. The lights went out. In total darkness, I heard footsteps approaching from the hallway. Slow, bare, wet like skin against tile. I locked myself inside the room and crouched in the corner, holding my flashlight like a weapon. Someone or something began knocking on the door. Not pounding, knocking, polite, measured. A voice spoke from the other side. It sounded like several people talking at once, layered together. It said my name. I didn't respond. I couldn't. After what felt like hours, the knocking stopped. The lights came back on. Every door in the hallway was open again, as if nothing had happened. I quit the next morning. No notice, no explanation. When demolition crews finally tore the place down months later, they found sealed underground chambers that weren't on any blueprints. Inside were restraints bolted into the floors and scratch marks on the walls. Human-shaped scratch marks. I still hear breathing sometimes when I'm alone at night, and every now and then
I swear I hear an intercom click on somewhere nearby.
My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 41 years old now. I've worked security jobs most of my life. Office buildings, hospitals, warehouses. I've seen break-ins, domestic disputes, overdoses, even a suicide once. None of that compares to what happened during the year I worked night security at a luxury apartment complex in Chicago. What still bothers me the most isn't what I saw. It's what the building seemed to learn about me while I was there. The complex was advertised as elite living, 22 floors of glass, steel, and polished stone, underground parking, a fitness center that never closed, rooftop access for residents only. At night, though, all that luxury turned hollow. The hallways swallowed sound. The lighting was soft and warm, but it never quite reached the corners. I worked alone from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. My job was to sit in the security office, watch the cameras, and do hourly patrols of each floor. Most nights were painfully quiet. The residents were wealthy professionals, lawyers, doctors, consultants. They rarely spoke to me beyond a nod or a forced smile. Some nights I wouldn't hear a single human voice for hours. About 3 weeks into the job, something on the cameras caught my attention. It was exactly 3:33 a.m. I remember the time clearly because the system timestamp glitched for a second, flickering like it couldn't decide what moment it was in. Then the feed from the 12th floor hallway froze and resumed with someone standing at the far end of the corridor. Just standing there. At first, I thought it was a resident who couldn't sleep, but something about the figure felt wrong. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't leaning against the wall. He stood perfectly still, facing the camera, arms hanging loosely at his sides. I zoomed in. The figure looked like a man, tall, thin. He wore what looked like an old-fashioned coat, the kind you don't see anymore, long, dark, hanging awkwardly off his shoulders. His head was slightly tilted downward, so the overhead lights never touched his face. No matter how I adjusted the contrast or brightness, his features stayed hidden in shadow. He didn't move for nearly 4 minutes. Then the feed glitched again, and he was gone. I checked the access logs. No one had used a key card on that floor around that time. I wrote it off as a camera error and tried to forget about it. The next night, at 3:33 a.m., it happened again. Same floor, same spot, same stillness. This went on every single night. Eventually, I started dreading that time. I'd watch the clock crawl closer to 3:33, my stomach tightening, waiting for the glitch, waiting for him. I checked tenant records for the 12th floor. No one matched the description. No one had reported guests. No one had complained about someone lingering in the halls. It was like the man on the camera didn't exist to anyone else. After a week of this, curiosity got the better of me. At 3:20 a.m., I took the elevator up to the 12th floor to check in person. The doors opened to silence.
The hallway stretched out in both directions, empty. The carpet was spotless, no scuff marks, no footprints. The air felt stale, like it hadn't circulated properly in a long time. I walked slowly, my shoes barely making a sound. I reached the exact spot where the figure always stood. Nothing. No cold air, no strange smell, just a normal hallway. When I returned to the security office, my hands were shaking. I pulled up the footage from the 12th floor, and behind me, at the far end of the screen, he was there, standing exactly where he always stood, watching me walk away. After that night, things began to change. Residents started calling the front desk about knocking, slow, deliberate knocks on their doors late at night, always 3 knocks. When they checked the peephole or opened the door, the hallway was empty. One woman on the 12th floor told me she heard whispering through her door, like someone practicing sentences under their breath. Another resident said he woke up to the sound of someone standing outside his bedroom, breathing heavily, even though he lived alone. The cameras never showed anyone knocking. Maintenance logs finally gave me some answers I wish I'd never found. Nearly a year before I started working there, the 12th floor had been partially sealed off after a tenant died. A man who lived alone, rarely interacted with neighbors. He had stopped answering emails, stopped showing up to work. By the time anyone checked on him, he had been dead for weeks. Cause of death: dehydration. The report mentioned deep scratch marks on the inside of the apartment door. His apartment number matched the exact spot where the figure appeared on camera.
After that, I started noticing him elsewhere. Reflections in the elevator mirrors that didn't match anyone inside. A shape at the end of a hallway that disappeared when I blinked. The sound of footsteps behind me that stopped when I turned around. One night during my patrol, I heard knocking behind me. 3 slow knocks. I turned around. He was standing only a few feet away. Up close, his face was worse than I imagined. His skin was pale and tight, stretched too thin over his bones. His mouth curved into a smile that looked painful, like it hadn't been used in a long time. His eyes were open but empty, unfocused, staring past me rather than at me. He leaned forward slightly and whispered in a dry, broken voice, "You can open the door now." I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the lobby, screaming for help that never came. I quit the next morning. The building replaced the cameras on the 12th floor shortly after. The glitches stopped. Management claimed the issue was resolved, but residents still report knocking. 3 slow knocks, always at 3:33 a.m. And sometimes, they say, the knocking comes from inside the apartment.
My name is Daniel Ruiz. I'm 26 years old now, and this happened during my very first security job. At the time, I was desperate for work. I just moved to Northern California, had no connections, and took the first overnight security position I could get. It was at a rural storage facility surrounded by forest, far enough from civilization that your phone lost signal halfway down the access road. I thought it would be easy money. Quiet nights, no people, just time to think. I was wrong. The facility consisted of dozens of long, rectangular warehouse-style storage units laid out in rows, all identical. Corrugated metal walls, heavy sliding doors, harsh white security lights mounted above each unit. Beyond the fence line was nothing but dense forest, tall trees, no underbrush, and a constant low wind that made everything whisper. My shift ran from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. I stayed in a small guard shack near the front gate and did patrols every 2 hours. The owners were very clear about one rule. Absolutely no one was allowed on the property after dark. If I saw any activity, I was to report it immediately and not engage. On my second night, around 12:40 a.m., I noticed something off during my patrol. One of the units had its interior light on, Unit 47. I stopped my cart and stared at it for a long moment. All the other units were dark. I radioed dispatch to confirm. They checked the logs and told me no one was authorized to be on site. They suggested I investigate cautiously. As I walked closer, the air felt different around that unit. Colder, heavier. I could hear something coming from inside. Crying. It was a man's voice, low and broken, sobbing softly like he was trying not to be heard. It didn't sound drunk or angry. It sounded exhausted, defeated. I called out, identifying myself as security. The crying stopped instantly. No footsteps, no movement, just silence. I unlocked the unit and slid the heavy door open. Inside was empty. No boxes, no equipment, no sign anyone had been there. Just bare concrete walls and a single metal chair placed in the center of the unit, facing the back wall. The chair wasn't dusty like it had been used recently. I reported everything and finished my shift shaken, but still rationalizing it. Maybe someone had snuck in and left before I opened the door. But it happened again and again. Over the next week, Unit 47 became a pattern, always the same. The light would turn on by itself. I'd hear crying. Sometimes it sounded closer to the door, sometimes farther away, like the voice was coming from the walls themselves. The moment I announced myself, it would stop. And every time, the unit was empty, except the chair. Then one night, the crying changed. It turned into laughter, low, strained, like someone forcing sound out of a throat that had forgotten how to laugh. It echoed strangely, bouncing around the metal walls in a way that made it hard to tell where it was coming from. When I opened the unit that night, the chair was gone. Instead, the walls were covered in handprints, hundreds of them, pressed into the dust and grime, overlapping, layered on top of each other, some high up, some low, some smeared like someone had been dragged, all of them human. I felt sick.
The next morning, I confronted the owner. I told him I was done unless I got answers. He hesitated for a long time before finally admitting something. Years ago, Unit 47 had been used for temporary holding. That's the exact phrase he used. People waiting for transport. He wouldn't tell me who they were or where they were taken. There were no police reports, no official records, just a verbal admission and a warning not to ask further questions. I decided that would be my last week. On my final night, I refused to approach Unit 47 no matter what happened. I stayed in the guard shack watching the camera feeds. At 2:11 a.m., the monitor for Unit 47 turned on by itself. The camera showed the inside of the unit. I was standing there, facing the back wall. I watched myself on the screen, completely still. My posture was wrong, too stiff, like I was being held upright. Slowly, impossibly, the version of me on the screen turned around. He smiled. His mouth stretched far wider than mine ever could, splitting his face into something unnatural. His eyes were dark, hollow, and fixed directly on the camera. Then he raised his hand and knocked on the inside of the metal door. 3 slow knocks. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The feed cut to static. I quit the next morning without saying a word. I didn't even collect my final paycheck. Months later, I heard the facility burn down. They said it was an electrical fire. Unit 47 was completely destroyed. Sometimes when I'm alone, I hear knocking behind me. 3 slow knocks, and I never turn around.